Hello, everyone. Welcome to our webinar where we're introducing our new AI Debrief tool that allows you to turn results into lessons in truly a matter of seconds. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Jordan Novak. I've been with Capsum for over 15 years, and I lead the product and service teams. I'm also an instructor at DePaul University here in Chicago, where I teach strategy at the undergraduate, graduate, and executive education programs. And I have to say, I am personally very excited to start using this new feature in my course this fall. I'm also joined by my colleague, Eric Smith, who directs our client relationship services team. We're lucky to have him here with us today. Eric's been with us for the better part of actually well over 20 years. And I like to say that Eric's probably forgotten more about our simulations than I'll ever know. He'll be walking us through a demonstration of the debrief tool. Few housekeeping items before we get started. Yes, this webinar will be recorded and distributed to everyone that's in attendance and for those that did sign up. We also have an option that you'll probably find on the bottom of your screen on Zoom where it has an opportunity to post any questions that you may have. Please use that Q&A function. We'll be able to answer as many questions as we can at the end of the webinar. There's going to be a few things that we're going to cover today. First, I'm going to take a quick step back and share a little bit about Capsum's approach to building AI into the simulation experience. We'll touch on our first foray into using AI for you and your students. And then my colleague Eric will do a live demonstration of the new AI Debrief tool. So let's jump into it. And in fact, let's take a few steps back. And really, as we take those steps back, let's go back a couple of years ago. And if we think back, the AI boom had really started to take off. Companies were throwing out various primitive ways that generative AI could be used in their products. And during this time, we were really listening closely to our professors. Several of you that I was saying hello to before the webinar started actually gave us your insights. You shared your concerns, your excitement, and your general interest around AI being used with our products. And of course, we've been testing these AI models and their application with our simulations. But to be candid, a few years ago, the AI models were actually quite poor. They were massively overpromising and under-delivering. The AI would speak so confidently about what you were asking, even though many times it was lying through its virtual teeth. It did so confidently, right? So we probed it, we tested it, and we tried to understand where its true limitations were for a company like ours. We knew that we wanted to be very intentional with how we rolled out AI into our products, balancing the need to bring value back to you and your students with where the capabilities were at the time. So a few years ago, when we tested out the AI as a debrief tool, it was a total failure. If it were a student in your class, it would have received an immediate F. But as a trained chatbot on the rules and essential mechanics of playing the simulation and in the context of teams, there really was something there. We found that with proper training, we can get a good knowledge-based chatbot to at least earning a B in your class. So last September, we rolled out what we called Capsum Tutor. It's our AI-powered teaching assistant that works for all of our business simulations. Let me tell you, the tutor is really helpful. And it's always available. Could you imagine us being available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year? Well, our chatbot is. And since we've rolled it out, it's been a tremendous success. There's been over 60,000 conversations that our students and professors have had with our chatbots. And we've seen a noticeable improvement for both the student and professor experience. For students, they get their answers immediately. Professors, well, they receive a whole lot less emails about the basic mechanics. We're even noticing it at Capsum, especially on the support side of the house. We're getting better questions from your students. And really the best way I could describe it is that our students are now spending less time learning the simulation and more time learning business. And that's where we want them at, right? So today, the star of the show, though, is our new AI Debrief tool. And I would say that the technology is finally at a point where it can make a real impact for you. This tool is meant to be your Capsum expert that is trained in all of the ways of the simulation. It can read a simulation report, or several at a time and give you a script on just how to run a debrief in your class. And when I'm referring to a debrief, I'm talking about how you make sense of everything that happened in that round that was just played by your students. It's the answer to what happened and why. And this AI debrief tool will even provide you with teaching notes and quick takeaways that you can provide each of your teams. Not only that, but Eric's going to show you just a few of the ways that you can push the AI to go well beyond simply debriefing your students, such as creating assignments around the simulation as well. We've been working on this for a while. We've been developing and testing it throughout 2025. And as I mentioned, we've really been prototyping this for several years. Over the summer, we had several professors participate in our what we call a closed beta experience, where they used it in their classroom with students to help teach their courses. It's been refined based on a lot of their feedback and a lot of internal testing. And it's gotten to the point where we're just too excited. We need to show you it at this point and make it available to you. And so you can let us know what you think about it. So as of today, we're officially releasing it as an open beta to all of our professors. And you'll notice on the screen that there's several key benefits outlined here, including the fact that it's available with a free ChatGPT account. I'll make a quick note about that. Over the summer, most of the professors that use this tool did so quite successfully with their free ChatGPT account. Well, a couple of weeks ago, OpenAI decided to change how PDFs are actually read by the AI in those free accounts. And while the experience is quite similar to the paid version of the accounts, I'm talking like 95% similar, the free version might be just a little lazier, and it might need a little bit more prompting to get to where Eric's going to show you today. All right, so let's jump into the process. It's really as simple as this. You're going to go into your account, download the simulation report for the round that your students just played. You'll click the link that we provide you at the top of your screen, and you're going to upload your results into ChatGPT. You're going to press enter, and voila, a debrief will unfold before your eyes. And today, we're showing you the experience and how we trained it to think through the entire course you teach. We're going to show you a single round debrief. This is great when you're just beginning the simulation with your students. Then we'll fast forward to the midpoint of your course when you have several rounds of data. The great thing is the AI can analyze this data in seconds and spot things that would normally take Eric and I quite a bit of time to unearth. It can dig into the key concepts that your students have been learning outside of the simulation and tie it directly to the simulation experience. Finally, we're going to show you how you can use the AI to wrap up your course and truly summarize the whole experience and tell a story about what each team did. All right, enough background. Let's jump into the demonstration. I'll pass it over now to the very capable hands of my colleague, Eric Smith. Eric, take it away.
Thank you, Jordan. I see a lot of familiar names in the chat. Good to see you all. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And first thing I want to talk about is where to find these AI resources. There's two links at the top of your course portal after you sign into your course. The first one is called Capsum Tutor. This is the AI resource Jordan talked about that is available to both your students and to you. It's more like an FAQ bot designed to speed up getting students up the learning curve, right? That is not the star of our show today. Today, we're going to be focusing on the new AI Debrief Tool. Now, in both cases, you just click the button to access the tool. It will open up ChatGPT in another window, and I'll demonstrate how to use that in a moment. First, I want to make sure you know how to download your results as a PDF. So we're going to go down to Report at the bottom of our course portal. We're going to click Open, which I have already done just to save time. That would open our report in this window. Now, to save it as a PDF, we need to click where it says Print Report, which opens up this last window, where we can then click the Save button and save the report as a PDF on our computer. Now, as a best practice, I always recommend naming the report something unique. whether it's the sim ID and the round, or something like fall 2025 round 1, round 2, etc. Something where when the AI gets the report, it will know it is unique and it needs to start from scratch when it's generating your debrief. Okay, so we know how to save the report as a PDF on our computer. What I'm going to do now is show you how to access the tool. So we're just going to click that Go button on our dashboard. It's going to open up ChatGPT in another window, which should open up any moment. Now, might be getting a lot of traffic. That was a little slower than normal there. But once we are in here, we would just click the little plus symbol, add photos and files. We'd select our report. And once the report has uploaded, we'll see the button light up down here near the bottom right. And as soon as that is ready to go, I'll click the button and it will begin our debrief. Now, I don't want to make you all sit here and watch this type itself out as it generates the debrief, but basically it's scanning the document, confirming all the information, using all of the training that we've given it to generate a quick synopsis of the team's results for us as the instructor. So in one sentence, I can get a feel that Andrews had a solid start with profits and growth. Baldwin had some significant losses despite having good sales. Chester had a very tough year. They took an emergency loan. It looks like they had some pretty significant losses. I always pause at this point and just do a quick fact check. Right? I've got the round 1 report that I uploaded over here. It says Andrews had 120.7 million in sales and 5.1 million in profit. It is rounding to the nearest 100,000 here, but the sales look good, profits look good. If I look at Baldwin, same story, negative 11.5 million profit, 121.7 in sales. All right, the information checks out. I can continue forward with my debrief. Now, I'm going to close our live debrief here and go to a stored conversation I've got ready for you. But this is what I would call the standard debrief, right? We uploaded a file. We didn't give it any sort of prompt. And it gave us a quick, qualitative analysis of each team where we can understand what happened in one sentence, along with a little supporting evidence. At the bottom of the industry news report, we will highlight the best and worst teams. Now, we include this because oftentimes as instructors, when we want to illustrate what worked well for a team, we like to show something that worked for the top performer. Likewise, if we want to help a team that's struggling, we need to know which team had the worst year. Now, this next section, where it says next round objectives, I want to give a shout out to an instructor I've worked with for a very long time at New York University. He was one of our testers over the summer in his course. And when I was checking in with him periodically, he would tell me, Eric, I love that little analysis it gives me right away. But, what I'm really after is 3 things I can tell each team that they need to focus on to improve each round. So I said, that's interesting. I think that would be good for everybody. Let me see if I can build that into the standard debrief, which is what we're looking at here. Okay, Andrews, defend your market share in traditional and low end. Baldwin, fix your negative margin on product bead. Chester, reduce your excess inventory on cake and cedar. You can see that it's tailoring the advice specific to that team's results and saving us a lot of time in the process. I've probably already saved 20 minutes just getting to this point. Now, at the end of that standard debrief, it will ask us if we want to look at an individual company or all companies. For our example here, I decided to go with Chester. That was our worst performer. The debrief tool thought for 46 seconds and then it came up with some focused feedback for Team Chester. It consists of a snapshot of their key financials. You can ignore this piece about the product ownership pass. This is for the AI. It's not for you. It's basically the AI making sure that all the feedback it's giving you for Chester is for the products that start with the letter C, right? We want to make sure it's following the simulation rules. The overall performance, it'll summarize for us in a paragraph. What I'm really after is this key takeaway, right? Chester's demand planning and cash control broke down. The plant carried large unit inventories, tying up cash and triggering the loan, while SG&A spend did not translate into enough margin dollars to cover their fixed costs. That's amazing. That would have taken me at least 10 minutes to get to, and it took 46 seconds. We included strategy identification here. We trained up the debrief tool on Porter's 6 basic strategies. I always verify this in the report myself just to make sure I agree. I will say after extensive testing, I think it's pretty good. It will justify why it's making the determination it is. Likewise, it will also analyze the balance sheet. This is something many instructors like to talk about in their debriefs, particularly cash and inventory. When we do see zeros in cash, we know that was an emergency loan. And often the culprit is that the team has too much money tied up in inventory. Well, at a glance, we can see how the struggling teams compare with the other teams in the industry. The sales forecasting review, this is checking 2 things. The first thing it's looking at is for stockouts, and it's comparing the units sold for a product versus the potential sold for the product. Now, it'll also include an observation. In this case, Chester's problem was not stockouts. In fact, several products sold above their potential because their competitors underproduced. And it notes that that's a temporary lift that can't be relied upon next round. Next, it's looking at excess inventory. Now, the guidelines we gave the debrief tool was anything more than 3 months worth of sales is considered excessive. So it looks at units sold for the year, it calculates the monthly sales, looks at their inventory, and determines if it's more than 3 months. If they have excess inventory, it will notate it here. And it'll add a note for the instructor at the bottom. So cake and cedar were the real problems here, even though there were 2 additional products that also are carrying too much inventory. What this means, these are pieces of feedback I would give directly to the team. It's going to educate, it's not going to tell them specifically what to enter for their decisions. Lastly, we have a real-world example. Connecting the team to a real-world company and explaining why, along with 3 priorities for this team to focus on to turn things around, to help turn things around. Now, to be clear, I could have kept going, right? I could have prompted the conversation to continue however I wish at this point. I could have asked for another team, but this is the standard debrief. Upload the file. It will give you the industry news report, best teams and worst teams, 3 things for each team to focus on. And then if you want more, it's as simple as typing in a team name and it will generate all of that wonderful information. All right. I also wanted to showcase a couple of other interesting ways you can use the debrief tool that we're going to quickly go through. I'm not going to read the entire prompt here. You'll have these prompts as part of the materials following today's webinar. But the gist of this example is I wanted the debrief tool to create a SWOT analysis for Team A and Team B, and then give me some assignment ideas that we could use that require students to use those SWOT analysis. So looking at the SWOT, this is something that, of course, I would open up the round 2 results and confirm. I've already done that before the call today, but strengths, right? Andrews is profitable, strong margins. Weakness, no cash, stock prices dropping. One opportunity is that the market's growing, right? There's expansion opportunities in that. As far as threats go, 2 of their competitors are growing aggressively in sales. right? So, in this example, we gave the AI round 1 and round 2, and we gave it our course syllabus. So, as it's going through and highlighting strengths and weaknesses, it's talking about continuing from a round 1 loss. They lost money again in round 2. They took an emergency loan, signaling they had poor cash management. So once we have our SWOT analysis, we can decide to keep that as the professor, or we could give that to students as an example to work off of. As far as assignments go, I thought I came up with some great ideas here. There's a strategic trade-off debate where we divide our students into 2 groups. One group argues for cost leadership. The other argues for differentiation. They need to use evidence from their SWOT analysis. So their deliverable here, give me a 5-minute argument. The other side gets a 2-minute rebuttal. Financial rescue plan, using Baldwin's SWOT, students are going to design a short-term action plan for them without giving exact numbers, but help them turn things around. The deliverable, a 1-page outline identifying 3 financial levers with their trade-offs. The competitive positioning map, basically going to map Andrews and Baldwin's products on a perceptual map and see if their products align with their SWOT strengths. Boardroom pitch, why invest in us? Actually, I like this better at the end of the sim, but I could see using it earlier in the course. That would be a 3-minute team pitch and a SWOT to objectives alignment. Students take one item in their SWOT and translate it into a SMART goal for the next round. The deliverable there, a table of 3 objectives per team with the rationale. So my first observation here, I love the variety of ideas and the different deliverables. I told it I like the second assignment, financial rescue plan. Can you help create a rubric for that assignment? Which of course it could. I'm sure you've all used these AIs at this point. They are fantastic at generating things like rubrics. Of course, I could have asked it to tailor it to a different number of points and things like that, but I like how it was organized, and this is including a few notes I can use as the instructor as well. All right, moving along. In the next example, I wanted to show what happens if we give the debrief tool 4 rounds of simulation data. So in this example, we're entering round 5. I'm looking to get a debrief. So I've provided all 4 rounds, and in the headlines, it's going to incorporate some historical data for me. And in the synopsis, so Andrew's steady climb building through long-term strength, Baldwin's roller coaster from struggles to breakthrough. Right, it's highlighting Baldwin's huge loss in round 1. They took an emergency loan in round 2, but in round 4, they've got the industry-leading profit and a 26% ROE. How did they get there? They've made some strong automation investments and aggressive marketing. It helped fuel that turnaround. Now, we still get the 3 things to focus on next round, the best and worst team. We're offered additional analysis. So we could continue the conversation that route. I wanted to include an example of how we could use this to create some discussion posts. So at this point, I attached the syllabus and I said, can you create 3 options for discussion posts to give my students? It should require analyzing their results and relate to at least one of the course objectives. It came up with a few options to consider. The strategy in action was essentially, identify your strategy and tie it back to Porter's 6 basic strategies. I wasn't crazy about this suggestion. It's round 5. I hope they know what strategy they're using at this point. Option 2, I was looking at, how did your departmental decisions impact your company's performance? Love that idea. Option 3, analyze the competitive environment and identify what's affecting your team's performance most. Love that idea too. In this case, I asked it to create a rubric for me along with an example answer. And if I'm having students do a discussion post, I might want to see a good example as a point of reference, which of course the AI did no problem, gave us another great rubric, and it crafted a answer that we could go off of to help give students feedback. All right, I want to pause here just to talk about some of the other tests and stories I've heard from customers that have been using this tool over the summer. Some favorites that stood out. If we go back to our first example here, when we got to the best and worst team, I've gotten some really great feedback from instructors that have probed the AI and said, why did you choose Ferris as the best team instead of Erie? Or why'd you choose Chester as worst instead of Baldwin? And the debrief tool will defend its decision and give you some really interesting insights as far as why team F and not team E, for example. Another example would be, can you create me some questions for breakout rooms? All right, I'm sending each team to a breakout. I want a question that is customized to their results. The debrief tool can do that no problem. We've seen it create assignments using different strategic frameworks. So Vrio, BCG, Pastel, balanced scorecard assignments. It can crank those out no problem. Based on the results, can you give me some good questions to ask my students? It can come up with as many questions as you want. Now, the last thing I want to show you here before I get into the shareholders final debrief, which I'm excited to show you. I want to make sure everybody's aware of this functionality. Now, when you click on where it says the name of the GPT, there's an option here called New Chat. When you click New Chat, it's similar to clearing cookies and cache in your internet browser. So these GPTs, they do have a limited number of memory. If I continue the conversation long enough, eventually it will forget the report that I uploaded 15 prompts ago, or it'll start getting confused if I've continued my round 1 conversation all the way down to, let's say, round 7. Right, it's starting to forget what happened back in round 1. So if I just hit New Chat and then I were to upload rounds 1 through 7 at that point, it would have a much clearer picture of what's happened, and it would give better advice instead of just continuing one very long conversation throughout the whole course. Hopefully that makes sense. All right, last but not least, and don't worry, I am not going to read this prompt to you verbatim. What I've done here is I have uploaded all 8 rounds of the simulation along with the syllabus. And, this was to help prepare the instructor for the shareholders final debrief. Now, for those that aren't familiar, this is a very common assignment that instructors use at the end of the course, where we ask each team to make a presentation. What did you do well? How would you rate the effectiveness of your strategy? What would you do different if you could do it all over again? And there's a lot of ways we can look at this. What real world company might you compare yourself to? Prepping for this as an instructor takes a long time. We need to look at all 8 rounds of results. We need to kind of construct a narrative for each team. We need to think of some good questions for each team when they're done presenting. Having worked at Capsum for around 20 years at this point, I can say I don't mind helping with this request, but it has always been the most time-consuming one that ends up on my plate. We're looking at least 2 hours of research here to give you a really good answer. Pleased to say the debrief tool did it in 1 minute and 46 seconds. Now, the only thing I'm going to highlight here is in my prompt, which again, we will give you, I said, take as much time as you need to fully analyze the results before you start your reply. I didn't want it to take any shortcuts. And when you give it permission to take its time, the analysis is pretty incredible. So in this example, I asked it to give me a 1-sentence synopsis of how each team performed each round, just to help me refresh my memory. Give me an idea of their overall performance. Tell me about the early sim, middle sim, and late sim. Right? Where did they struggle? Where did they perform well? What real world company should I compare them to? And what are 3 questions that I could ask this team that are specific to decisions that they made in the simulation? So looking at this, I was absolutely blown away by what it was able to give me. This is something I could give to another professor that was going to sit in on the final presentations and help serve as the board of directors, or alumni or local business people. I've seen some very interesting shareholders final debrief presentations over the years. This would make everybody's life a lot easier. So I wanted to make sure I shared it with you today. Uh, that ends my showcase. I hope you liked what you saw. Jordan, I'm going to hand it back to you.
Excellent. Thank you, Eric. And I can already tell by snooping through all the questions that you're asking that there's clearly a lot of excitement. And we're going to jump to that. So with that, I'd like to let's consider the open beta officially underway. And look, we wanted to make this experience really easy for you to jump in and start playing around with, whether your course is already set up or not. And let me say, if your course isn't set up for the fall, after the webinar, give us a buzz, reach out to our support team. We'll help you get everything set up and ready to go. But after the webinar, please feel free to head over to capsum.com/AI-debrief. There's a really nice landing page here that showcases all of this with a link to some sample simulation data that you can download, access to one of the AI debrief tools, and there's a really helpful document in there that has well over 30 prompts that you can use right in the AI debrief tool. So some of the stuff that Eric was showing you, some of those are directly ported right over, okay, just as some good thought starters. All right, I know there's still questions popping through, and we'll answer as many as we can. I want to get this out right away, since about four of the first questions came in. Does this work with my simulation? Yes. If you're using Foundation, Capstone, Global DNA, Capsum Core, Capsum Ops, Capsum Global, Capstone 2.0, Capstone 2.0 with sustainability. We have a lot of simulations. We have trained a custom AI debrief tool for each one of those simulations. And the important part is it knows our simulations. It knows the context. It's trained with a lot of different background information, all of the help guides and videos and all that fun stuff that we've trained it with some very specific instructions so that it can be really helpful to you. So the answer is absolutely. It works with the simulation you use. If you jumped into your course right now, you'd be able to access it. Another question that we received was, is there a special link I should be using? Yes. So the Foundation AI debrief is different than the Capstone AI debrief, right? Because they're trained on different information, they have different context and all of that. So be sure that when you log into your course and you look at the top of the screen and you saw where Eric was navigating to click, make sure you use that specific link. Another question that filtered through that said, I do not teach strategy in this course that I use the simulation. Can it handle my introduction to marketing course? Yeah, of course. Whether, specific to that, absolutely. It can help you focus on things like segmentation and positioning, forecasting and demand management, analyzing the effectiveness of promotion, kind of getting like into the broad versus niche trade-offs. Same with the accounting and finance course. It can do financial statement walkthroughs, do all sorts of DuPont analysis, ratio analysis, common size analysis, inventory. All right, enough of these analyses. It can do it. Any of the courses that you teach, I think the important thing is to just give it the context of, you can either say, hey, I teach this intro to accounting course at this university, or you can drop in your syllabus. And we find that if you use the word format of your syllabus, it reads it even better. But give it your syllabus and it will understand contextually what you're teaching and be able to connect the simulation to those concepts. Another question is, as I get into this, how do I share my feedback as I'm using this? So great question. And because this is in an open beta, we really want your feedback, and we will craft this and evolve this to meet your needs. So the more feedback you can give us, the better this tool is going to be for you and your peers at all of these other institutions. Best way to do that is reach out to your client relationship consultant, so your CRC, your support representative. Call us, send us an email, support@capsum.com. I'm sure you're used to sending us emails there. I can promise you that your feedback is going to directly influence how we evolve this product. Another question about the recording. If I wasn't clear up front, yes, this is recorded. It will be distributed to you either later today or probably tomorrow, as well as for anyone that did sign up and wasn't able to attend. Going through some more of these questions that I didn't write down ahead of time. When the AI gives recommendations for the areas for teams to improve, can you probe it further? Yeah. So when Eric was showing you that when you load a PDF in there and it's going to give you the headlines, all the way down to here's 3 things that each team should do to improve, it's trained on our simulation. So it knows, things like forecasting and demand management and inventory management, all that good stuff. So you can probe it. What it's not going to do is it's not going to tell you for this product, for product Baker, only produce 1,200 units, right? Number one, it has no idea of, just like in any simulation, it doesn't know what everyone else is doing, right? It doesn't know what all the other teams are going to be inputting. But not only that, but we put some safeguards in there to make sure that it's not trying to give misinformation in that regard. It's not going to give you those types of responses. So if it's saying, reduce your labor costs and consider increasing automation, it's not going to say increase Baker's automation from 3 to 7.0 in the next round, right? It's just going to encourage you to, work with your students to say, think about the trade-off between, increasing your automation. There's a cost to that, but think about what the ROI might be for that. Okay. Some more questions filing through. Is this available to students? What a great question. So the link that you see on your professor dashboard, there's 2 of them, right? So there's Capsum Tutor, which is kind of like that chatbot that's a knowledge base that really distills a lot of information. How do I get started in the simulation, or I need some help with forecasting. That link is available on the student side as well. And we absolutely encourage you to not only just tell students about that link, put it in your syllabus, make that as prominent as you can for the students, because it's a great first line of defense for you. It's going to really reduce a lot of the questions that you get right off the bat. Again, it is trained so that it's not going to give the students any direct, decision inputs or anything like that. And again, it's really scoped to really help them from a higher level and break down some of the formulas and things like that. Like if I increase my MTBF by, 1,000, how much is that going to impact my costs? Those types of things. For those, now with that all said, the link is not technically given to students. You can give it to students if you really wanted to. However, I would encourage you, just like with any of the new features that we may be presenting to you, especially as we're opening this beta up, my recommendation, and I think a best practice, is try it out yourself. Use it in your course for the next course that you teach. Use it for yourself or your TAs, whoever, whatever assistance that you might have for this course, and see how it really works. As this evolves, sure. I mean, we're not preventing you from doing that by any stretch of the imagination. And that's why we also put those guardrails, those safeguards in, to make sure that it's not trying to play the simulation for the students. All right. Can we incorporate the balanced scorecard results to provide some advice to teams? Absolutely. That's the type of feedback that we're looking for. Look, there's a lot of different ways that people kind of grade their simulation and say, this is, you're in first place. Maybe it's because you use the balanced scorecard or success measures. We have a million different ways that you can slice and dice this. What you can do is you can give it the context and say, we are using the balanced scorecard, or we are using these success measures in the simulation, right? How can I determine who's actually really doing well, who's struggling, all of that good stuff. All right. A lot of these questions are really just affirmations that they're really excited. Yes, you can absolutely load a bunch of couriers in there. A lot of the simulation reports, you can throw them in just like Eric was talking about. Just to kind of recap the experience, early on in the simulation, you're probably, round one, round two, you're only going to have a couple reports, right? So there's a lot of information that can be gleaned from that. But a best practice is, as time goes on, make sure you're giving it all of those reports, because then it can start getting into the trend data and tell more of the narrative. And again, it makes you look really, really prepared to say, remember when Andrews really had a couple missteps early on, right? They overproduced in round one. They took that emergency loan in round two, but they right-sized their company. They made some tough decisions, and they finally got to a profitable state by round four, right? That's the type of analysis that you can really expedite by using this AI debrief tool. If you have multiple industries, right? So if you do have, 3 or 4 different industries, yeah, you would want to run this, individually for each of them, because every simulation, with those 6 teams or however many teams you have running, those are all different kind of worlds, and they have a different story to tell. So I would encourage you to kind of separate that out. Now, we have had some people that have had several industries, and they start mashing all the data together to start getting some higher level understanding about just macro level, what's going on with my classes. So again, I would say I encourage you to take a peek at that, try it out, and let us know what it is that you're doing. And we'll jump on a call and have a conversation with you to really understand how this is really impacting your course. All right. If you use different performance assessments and you want to tune the AI to really understand that, yeah, absolutely. I think that really comes into how you're prompting it. So you can give it, let's just say, 6 couriers worth of data. So, 6 rounds worth of data. And then if you have a very specific scoring mechanism that you're using, you've created your own matrix of how you're making this thing go. Put that into Excel or whatever document that you have and upload it and give it the context. Say, this is how I'm grading my students. We've already had people test that over the summer, and they've had, pretty solid success there. Okay, we are running massively over time. It's already 12:42 Central Time, and we said this was going to be a half-hour long webinar. So we're going to leave it there. Again, I really encourage you, go to that landing page, capsum.com/AI-debrief. And at minimum, download that document that has over 30 prompts that you can use to start getting the wheels to turn. You'll see that as you're looking at the prompts, you can really fit this to your course. And again, for any of those that asked some questions that we didn't have a chance to get to, I promise you, we will respond to that today. We'll reach out to you via email today and make sure that you get the answer that you were looking for. Thank you again, everyone. Really excited to get this rolling. Please give us your feedback. Love to see how this is being used in your courses. Take care.